then going forward, their job's easier. I don't need to worry about them wasting all this time burning away money, right? Because that's what they're doing when they're spending so much time on something like that. And we move forward, right? So it's not like we're breathing over we're breathing over their throats. Sorry, their necks to make sure that they know what they're doing it properly, and they're doing it as smoothly as possible, right? So they're not stressing out
Talking like a
and building a
boss.
backlog.
But
So Doobie, I think you point out and highlight the ways that AI can be utilized to gain knowledge quicker in a cheaper way, which is awesome, right? Like middle management did not make enough TikToks about how awesome our company's cafeteria is. You're fired.
HR departments are beginning to use software algorithms to decide who to fire. HR software has been previously used to gather and interpret a large set of data points that could help with hiring employees and assigning them to projects. Now it appears that same software will be used for letting people go. Do you think there is anything wrong with this development? Is it problematic to reduce such an important decision to data points rather than an in-depth view of each employee? As of now, it seems that software is only assisting HR departments. But would your answer change if AI tools took over the job completely? What if the AI could be proven to make decisions that were more fair? So yeah, a little story I saw over the weekend and decided to share with you all. And it's a growing trend. The article that I shared of these guys talks about how like 300, 90% of like the top 300 companies, like they'll be using software to decide who to let go. And I think it follows that at some point, someone's going to get the bright idea of just letting a computer do it completely, right? Like hands-free, get rid of this for me. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that? We'll start with our friend Lactoid, opening statement.
Yep. So the opposition to this smells a little of the age-old complaints about self-serve gas stations and cars over horse wagons. I think ultimately, if companies want to automate certain positions, I have no problem with that at all. In fact, AI might actually make things even more fair, quote unquote, right? You would have, if you have bots deciding firings entirely off of objective metrics, well, then you don't have to worry about the human biases that we hear about so much. That's not going to be a factor here, at least not to the same extent. I do get some of the apprehension, but if you want to deal with a more human employer, I mean, you should know what you're getting yourself into if you're applying to Google, right? You probably shouldn't be applying to a large tech corporation. They're not particularly known for having very human employment policies anyway. So that's my opening statement.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Scott.
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree a little bit. Like, I agree with you that it is a labor-saving device, right? And a labor-saving device is always good for everyone because it, will allow us to fire HR people, have less people working in HR, which means that with less people working in HR, it means the products will be cheaper, the business can make more money, and because of this, the economy grows. As the economy grows, that means new jobs open up into the market for creative destruction. It's good for everyone. The problem, right, with this idea of like, oh, will an AI bot be more fair? There's a lot of problems with using AI. And the biggest one is that AI is not AGI, right? It doesn't have generalized intelligence. So whatever you program as an input, you're going to get as an output, right? And so whatever biases you have, you will program into the bot. And then there will be other things, unintended consequences and things that you miss. So I want to give an example. My mother used to work for the Social Security Administration. Right? She handled cases as they came in. And she really struggled with that job, mostly because she cared about her job. Most of the people that did really well, got promoted, got praise, and things like that were individuals that would go through a large amount of caseload very quickly. Well, how do you go through a large amount of caseload in the Social Security Administration? You deny people when they don't have enough paperwork. You tell them to fuck off and apply again, and you move on to the next case. Whereas my mother would find someone that was obviously mentally ill and had a lot of problems, but was too poor to get doctor's appointments. She would work with doctors. She would try and dig up documents. She would do everything she could to ensure that these people could get Social Security because they weren't able to work. And that took a lot of work, which meant her metrics were lower because she got less things done. So if an AI were to look at caseload and things like that, it might miss that if it's not programmed appropriately. You're also going to get disparate outcomes upon all kinds of measures that won't necessarily agree with people's sensibilities. If you want the most hardworking doctors, it's mostly going to be Asians and Indian Americans. And then that's going to be racist, even though that's just what you put into the system. So there's a human element that is going to be missing, and there's a problem that it's AGI, and there are things that aren't going to be captured. And the real controversy is when that occurs. Nevertheless, utilizing AI to go through massive amounts of data to get an accurate picture upon the metrics that you want to get an accurate picture of is a labor-saving device that is both good for the company and good for everyone. If the company chooses to purely use AI to hire and fire people, I doubt it's going to be able to compete against companies that are smarter and use a combination of the two. And I doubt people that refuse this like stupid fucking Luddites and make people sift through paperwork are going to waste money on bloated HR departments that can't keep up with other companies.
I'm assuming you called mine. I didn't hear that, or maybe something's off with me.
Corey, sorry, I
Okay.
need
That's
to
okay.
mute myself.
So yeah, I think so. I guess I'm plagiarizing a little bit from Scott because I think he touched upon a topic that I will elaborate on more about, at least attempt to. So I'm certainly not an expert on AI, but as a scientist, I at least know something about data. And Scott touched upon it in terms of whatever AI that you implement. As far as I know, pretty much it needs some sort of data to be trained. And generally speaking, garbage in, garbage out. My real concern is actually taking a step back in terms of if an employer wants to use an AI to determine who to keep, who to retain or fire, they want to collect data. And I think this will, let's say, likely incentivize employee tracking software, which people hate, and they understandably hate. And there's not a lot of data, but all the data that I've seen emerging pretty much says that employee tracking software, nobody likes it, and it just leads to pretty much people trying to game the employee tracking software, leads to lower worker satisfaction, lower productivity, and so there's some sort of middle ground, but generally speaking, I err on the side of not using AI to make these decisions because I don't think we have, let's say, good ways to collect data, and also people, employees, or either people personally, they don't want to have their data collected. And I'm just going to add this in there. I'll use the somewhat on a tangential topic. This is sort of a personal crusade of mine. Let's say open concept offices. This is something that's been, I'd say, widely adopted under the guise of, it improves productivity, and it's great for collaboration. And we have data now, at least the data is pretty robust. Of all I've seen, that it leads to, again, lower worker satisfaction, lower productivity, and I would say just these open concept offices. No one wants to work for your shitty open concept office, and I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you so much.
Sounds
I like
personal.
that extra dig they got there. All right,
Sounds personal.
It is, because it has bled into open concept labs, and I don't want to listen to your shitty music either while I'm working.
Fair enough. Okay, interesting. Let's go to Ginger.
Okay, so I honestly don't really have a hard opinion on the matter. I think it makes more sense to have an AI that fires people than it does to have an AI that hires people. Firing is pretty mutual on all ends. As far as why they get fired, they're not the productivity, their work ethic, things like that get entered into the data. However, that's kind of impossible to do for somebody that's being hired. I feel like there's a lot more to the process of hiring than there is to firing, and there's a lot more that is kind of based on gut instinct versus data.
Thank you.
That's a quick response.
Nina.
Okay, so I'm going to touch on a few things that we've already said. I definitely agree with Scott, unfortunately, on that machine learning bias also does translate to, reflecting human bias. So it's not like we're looking at a pure thing. We're looking at AI, of course. Like I think we've all heard of like the Microsoft bot that was turned into like a Nazi, basically. It's not like it's a perfect system by any means, and it does tend to translate into our personal biases. I mean, like for examples like going with the aspect of hiring versus firing, that I thought that was a really interesting thing to touch on was that when it comes to hiring practices, a lot more times like AI is formed off of like what they see. So if there's like a lot of like for example, like 27% of CEOs in the United States are like women, so then most of the time the AI is going to learn and be like, oh, well, CEOs are men then. And then they're only going to advertise those positions towards like men in that way. And obviously that doesn't really make sense because you're not getting the best person in the job just by that. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it is really a huge issue with discrimination when it comes to AI statistics because we cannot factor in things that you can't quantify. For example, people with disabilities, like maybe the AI will think like, oh, well, it might cost more for wheelchair ramps, so let's just not hire anyone with wheelchairs. Or obviously mental disabilities are a lot more complicated, but the idea that AIs cannot quantify these things, I think is always going to cause a really big issue in both hiring and firing, along with a lot of other issues that comes to AI, but I don't want to stick on my opening too long, so I'm going to go and pass it off.
Look at how these women are accomplishing what the men did in like a third of the time. Amazing. Let's go to
I gave them the framework. All right, they just had to agree with me.
Yeah, you see my notes, bitch.
I feel like you're just encouraging Doobie to give one of his like famously short intros like for every segment now.
Giga
Hi,
Chad.
I'm Doobie and go to the next. Yeah. I just want to say that a lot of this has to do with the complexity of the AI, and my first and foremost my concern is actually with the employer more than with the worker, because I feel like if you're not making your firing decisions on the basis that will best help the company, then you're hurting all of the other workers that are working for that company as well. And that's my main concern. Like when you're looking at systems that are automated, let's take the very most simplistic one I can think of right now, which is when Elon Musk took over Twitter. One of the things he asked for was a list of the number of lines of codes that various different programmers used, and if the number of codes was too small for somebody, then they made it to the top of the firing list. Now, an AI would be more complicated than this, and would hopefully its complexity would like make more sense and would result in productivity. But this is an example of what Fabian was talking about in terms of automated systems not understanding context, and then like really hurting the bottom line. It could be that the people who wrote fewer lines of code were writing code that was a lot more efficient and was able to get like things done, but that wasn't the basis upon which those people were being fired. I'm old enough to remember when computers first started entering the education space, and by using the web to aggregate like test answers and scores and things like that, we were able to grade a lot faster, but it didn't necessarily make it easier to grade. And I can go into it later as to why that was, but all of it had to do with the level of complexity that was involved in the automation. And then not just how complex it is, because things can be unnecessarily complex, but also how it's complex.
Thank you so much. And yeah, just, from a person, who's done coding, done IT, like you could just, I mean, if it's just the number of lines, then I can just like hit the return key, right? And break up the code to like be a ridiculous number of lines. It'll look like a fucking mess. It'll still work, but like, I don't know if that's what you want.
Just like I said, you're going to game the system if we're tracking that.
Exactly, right? Great work, Elon. Let's go. Oh my, so stupid. Counterpoints is here. Our friend Connor. Shout out to my friend Connor. Looking good. I like the haircut, right? Looking smooth, right?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you okay. Glad to have you here, friend. Feel free to introduce yourself and then opening statement.
Yeah, so my name's Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. It's mostly Warhammer 40K content, but I am, of course, running the Heated Hippie, which is a Friday night panel show. So obviously, I want to get folks over there. So if you want to see people yell at each other the same way that you see them yell at the Reverie Roundtable, come check us out on Friday nights between 9 p.m. and 11 EST. In reference to the topic, and then also I just want to say I'm very happy to be here. We're going to try to make this monthly, the last Monday of every month. I'm going to be here, and basically I'll be late just because I'm in the wage cage, but blah, blah, blah. In reference to the topic, I don't want to agree with everybody else about like all the nuances of the shit. So I guess I'm just going to troll, and I'm going to say whatever gets these like fucking HR reps to fire themselves, I am down for. Whatever AI like exposes all the fucking administrators who think that they have important jobs, but realistically they just sit on ass all day and drink coffee and don't do shit. I hope the AI exposes that and gets all these people fucking shit canned. I hope that it's a self-eating monster where the people who are implementing the tool in order to take care of take out the wages who aren't carrying their weight. I hope the wages show that they are far and above carrying the fucking company, and then this tool just eats all the fucking administrators who are importing it in the first place in order to fuck over wages. So that's my sincere hope for HR-based HR. And then what I would cite as actual kind of serious backup for my perspective is the fact that if you look at like insurance, or if you look at the medical industry, or if you look at teachers or any of that kind of shit, the pay and all of that kind of shit has been going up and up and up. But like if you look at the growth in the field, it's oftentimes not the front end people who are actually doing the performance work, it's administrators. So if we can shit can unnecessary administrators, I would be super happy about that. And with that, I will shut the fuck up.
All right, thank you so much. And last, and actually, I'm really looking forward to this. DB being a boss, right? An employer, all right? Part of the enemy. I'm really curious as what your thoughts are on all this.
I think AI can be really useful for HR departments, especially. I know that Corey earlier said he hates this, but if you're gonna have people working at home primarily. And since the pandemic, lots of people working at home, either full-time or part-time, or they do like 1 day in, 4 days out, or whatever the fuck it is, right? I think at some point, you're going to need to make sure that these people are working, right? And you can do that in one of two ways, right? So you can track their output, right? You can track their productivity, make sure that they're filling out the reports they're supposed to, filling out the paperwork they're supposed to, sending the emails they're supposed to, etc. Or you track their mouse movements. So you track how many actions they're taking per minute or whatever the fuck while they're supposed to be at their PC. And AI can gather all that information, then make determinations as to who's gaming the system, who's actually trying to be productive, who's actually doing the work, and who's just hanging out at home watching YouTube videos. And every so often they'll send out an email to make it look like they're busy. Right, which definitely happens. I've done it. Right, I'm the employer, and I do that shit all the time. Hey, I'm in a meeting. Actually, I'm just hanging out on Twitch. Right, so I do it. I do it. I'm sure my producers do it. I'm sure my fucking secretaries do it. I know it happens. Right, it shit happens. So, at my level, right, which I'm not over 100 employees yet. I don't think it's reasonable to have it making decisions like firing people, but giving suggestions, giving feedback for like performance, analyzing people's workflows, etc. That all makes total sense to me. Of course, you're going to need to deal with the bias, right? That could happen depending on how this thing is programmed. But at the level of like, if I had 100,000 employees, right, all over the fucking world, I can absolutely see it become the case that actually it's way more efficient, way more productive to just have it suggest people for firing, right? And even carry out the firings if their metrics are bad enough, right? So if they're being totally unproductive, no work shown for the time that we're paying them, then yeah, those decisions, make it on your own AI. Send out the fucking firing letter, whatever the fuck it is. But for people who aren't at that level, maybe give suggestions. Say, hey, this person looks like they might be at risk. You should talk to them, right? You should have a meeting, see what's going on. Maybe there's a life event happening, whatever the fuck it is, right? So AI I don't think it's like as simple as saying, hey, this is all bad and we should just avoid it. I think there's definitely a use case here, and even for large companies like Google, I think it'd be reasonable for them to use these programs. at that level, especially. Sorry, give me 1 second. Oh, well, I'm done, but give me a second.
You
I'm not
need
sure
a
if you meant like
second?
a
Or?
second.
Yeah, I was done. I was done with
Yeah,
the
he said he was
opening,
done.
but I'm
Oh,
stepping
he's
away for
done.
like a
Okay,
minute.
okay,
I'll be
go
right
ahead.
back.
Never mind.
Still listening.
Opens the panel.
Here's one pushback I have against the people saying, look, the bias is going to be programmed into the AI. I understand that's a risk, but isn't that an easier risk to control for if you're, isn't monitoring maybe like the whole point of this is a labor saver, right? So you have to monitor fewer people because the AI is going to do this. So isn't it easier to monitor the smaller group of people to try to control for bias as opposed to control for like Google, especially? The article mentioned Google is doing this, or they deny it, but they're probably doing it. Is the question like for them with the amount of HR they would need, there'd be a lot more risk of bias, right?
Well, my company has like 100 people, and there's only like one HR person, and they do perfectly fine. There's
right with 100 people,
everybody.
sure, but for like Google, or Facebook,
Well, so-
Yeah, so
Meta.
I know Counterpoints is here, and so I know you've done some stuff in insurance, right? And so when we look at like car insurance companies, I think Counterpoints, we've talked about this a little bit before. Geico, for example, is like famous for being like this. Geico is famous for like having programs track your mouse movement, like how many seconds it takes you to get from like one screen to the next screen, etc. And because of this, Geico is able to run a really, really tight ship, and it also stresses their employees the fuck out, right? But because they're able to, what they do is they burn people out. But the thing is that in this market, what ends up happening is there are some people that thrive really well under pressure, and they actually do great at Geico. The type of people there are certain types of people that love that type of work environment where it's highly meritocratic and it's based off of like arbitrary fucking measurements from like computers. and like they do.
I fucking hate. Yeah.
And then there's some people that are like, fuck that, I will never work for Geico. And then there are some people that are like, look, I'll work for Geico for a couple of years to get it on my resume. And Geico, because they save so much money with this product, with the way that they do this, also gives out industry standard training. Like if you want to move to another insurance company, like having worked at Geico before and like not been fired and worked there for a couple of years means that you're probably got way better training than somebody at Nationwide or anything like that. And like it looks really good on your resume because it says this person is a hard worker with a high output. And so like the thing is that like some companies will adopt this and other companies will not. And then there'll be varying degrees to which it's adopted. And it's a good thing that that's in the market. I don't give a fuck if certain companies adopt it and it works out poorly for them, then it proves that it was a bad idea for them.
Yeah, okay, so what you just said is exactly what I would kind of be hoping, where like fucking stupid ass middle managers and higher managers would be like looking at like click-through rate or how you switch to screens instead of like claims settled or customers dealt with or policies sold or something like that. Because that's actually so I work for a fucking megacorp. I hate it, but they're the best of the megacorps basically. And so there are different brands for different reasons. Some of them are tracking your clicks, and some of them are like take care of the people because that's our brand. So what I'm actually borderline hoping is that like the maniacal hyper manager people who miss the trees for the forest or the forest for the trees, I hope they focus on all the wrong things and destroy companies. Because basically like this like creative destruction or whatever would just like highlight the better things in the market anyways. At least that would be my hope. So I think
it makes the AI better, right? Like that's the other thing too.
It would be like the perfect tool to disrupt like absolute micromanagers, which I would
can
love.
I kind of piggyback off that as in, like an idea? Would you be because you obviously hate the idea of like micromanaging assholes that are like up top probably doing like 3 emails a day and like doing absolutely nothing else but then bitching at your productivity. Would you be open to the idea, or like could AI maybe be used if you're going to do it at your company? You have to be the first one to do it, and you have to show everybody what they're going to see from you.
I would love that, but of
Because
course,
I think
like,
that's based
you know,
as fuck.
yeah, like, but you know for a fact that's not how it's
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I think if they're
yeah,
gonna
like,
try and implement
it's gonna
that, then
be,
maybe we should have to
yeah.
do that way.
But see that's like my funny thing is like I think what would happen. This is actually how it rolls in my head. Like I during my training at Megacorp Incorporated, you know, there was like this like really smart guy like out of Harvard or Yale. He was hanging out, slumming it with you know, the new hires and all that kind of stuff, trying to see like the next new idea that was going to come from the fucking schmoes in order to make the business more effective. And I gave him an idea, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." But what I realized through talking to this guy is like this guy basically his job, he was handed like 300 grand a year, probably going to be shit canned in 2 years, but he has to find a reason or find the ability to save the money more than his salary. And if
Right.
he doesn't find that, he's fucked. And so the fact that people like that exist at all is frustrating for me. But then if this is like the ultimate tool that screws over that class of people, I would love to have like creative disruption has like screwed over the proles so many times throughout history. I would love to have like creative destruction screw over the management class. I would, God, that gives me a mind boner.
It seems like you just want companies to fail.
I
though.
think you just hate your
No,
boss.
I don't want companies to
Honestly.
fail. I want
okay.
I want micromanagers at the wrong companies to destroy their fucking companies, and then I want them to fail. And I want them as a class of people
Yeah,
to
but
get fucked
some
over.
micromanaging is
company
like
would, though.
necessary though.
Sure.
Like
I
so,
agree.
Like so when you say micromanage, because I mentioned like tracking mouse movements and whatnot, right?
Mhm.
So with people like working at home more, you have lots of people who will do nothing most of the day, right? They go from like being productive employees to doing the bare minimum to skate by, without like raising any red flags. Or if they do raise a red flag, they do it like once a week, so it's not like a huge, right?
Mhm.
Or they'll take overtime, right, to finish the work they should have done during the day when they were hanging out playing YouTube and jerking off, right? So I feel like
Is
like-
that, is that what you're
Is that what you
like?
do?
Is that what the software is telling you?
So-
That's how you do the
Yeah.
mouse
No.
movements.
Yeah. So
Exactly,
but
right?
for instance,
So
it's
I think
about the metrics you put in. Sorry, I'll let you finish, but I have like a direct response.
Go for it.
Well,
No.
okay, so my direct response is, yeah, there's probably people who are like that. But if you have somebody who's like mouse movements are like every 3 seconds and they're frenetically clicking between shit and they're fucking, you know, going from this app to that app to that app, and then they produce, let's talk about like claims adjusters for a second. And they settle 5 claims that day to the satisfaction of the customer and to the satisfaction of the company. And what is it? And like nobody's complaining on the customer side and nobody's complaining on the like the, I don't know, the fucking company side. And then you have somebody who's doing a third of the work, but like from mouse clicks and all that kind of shit. But they have the same output and less or the same amount of complaints and all that kind of shit. That wouldn't be a red flag for me to say, oh, hey, productive person who's as equally productive, I need you to move your mouse more during the day because the AI is tracking you. I would be asking that person, it's like, hey, you just did the same amount of shit for half the effort. How did you do that? And then figure out how to like ramp up efficiency. But that's going to be
No,
on the
you took
middle
the wrong
managers who are going
lesson
to
from that,
decide
though.
what variables to track.
So you took the wrong lesson from that, right? So the lesson that I would have taken from that is the person from this hypothetical is that the person who was clicking all over the place and working 24/7, but only pushing out the same amount of like productivity as the person who was like hanging out most of the day. That the person who's being really, you know, who's like working harder probably doesn't really know how to use the system. Is probably struggling somewhere, so they're having to work twice as hard at the same thing, right? So I
Hey,
reach
I
out
would've
to them
told you
like,
that,
hey, yeah, hey, it looks like you're spending this amount of time on the screen, or you're refreshing the page this much, or you're saving and then going back and making changes. Do you know how to do this, right? Is there like an issue here that you don't understand? Can we train you better? Like what is it, right? That's what I'd get from that, right? So you reduce the stress on that person, make sure they know how to use everything so that they don't have to go that busy to get the same amount of work done. Then you still go to the other guy who's hanging out most of the day and say, hey, what the fuck are you doing, right? Like what yeah, you're doing something, you're not breaking anything yet, but you're also not working most of the day that we're paying you. We're paying you to work 8 hours a day. You're working like 4, like so. You want to like start?
Of course.
I wanna-
Sorry, you go first, and then I have a rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt to rebut as well. So Again, I'm going to bring in my personal crusade against open office spaces. Like, there's a reason why. Okay, there's multiple reasons why people don't like open office spaces. One of them is like a lack of privacy, where people do want privacy. Like, there's obviously a time and place for collaboration and interact with your coworkers. People generally don't want that sensation of someone breathing down your neck. And there's a reason why, again, all the emerging evidence that I've seen, employees don't like these employee tracking softwares, where if you're like, there's a way to implement employee tracking software, where it's like, yeah, there's some sort of compromise. But when you're like tracking mouse clicks, when you're tracking like how much you're tabbing between windows, like you're breathing down the person's neck. And as far as I could tell, nobody likes that. And there's a reason why also.
Because it makes it harder for them to slack off, actually. But when we're tracking it, let me get just Scott. I'm sorry, just really quick. Let me give you an example. Because I run an insurance.
You're breaking up, I think.
You're breaking
Yeah.
up.
His workers are unplugging his cords.
Yeah, right.
You guys hear me?
Yeah,
You're
we
not
hear
being
you
as
now.
productive. with
Okay.
this, registering.
So I run an insurance
Be
company,
faster.
right? Not like a carrier, but like a wholesaler, right? And one of the things that we do is we have teams of underwriters who go through, and like they need to make changes on policies, right? And we're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars in coverage, and we're dealing with like endorsements that are extremely important. They need to make sure that these things are put on correctly. Put on the day that they're meant to be effective, sent out within a certain amount of time period between that date and the day that it was sent in, and between that date and the end of the policy, etc. It's extremely important that all this is like on the fucking dot, right? With new people coming in, and even with old people, right? Because there's some stuff that you don't deal with all the time, right? So like if you don't deal with like midterm cancellations a lot, and one shows up on your desk, and you don't actually know what you're doing, but you try to go through the process anyway. I've had situations where a person, like an underwriting assistant, will spend fucking 3 hours working on something that really takes 10 minutes because they don't know how to do it and they don't want to ask, right? So we say, oh, look they're spending this much time on this page. This is what they're doing. Or they're making a change and they're refreshing, going back, removing the change, trying this other way, trying this other thing. It's tracking not just like the mouse movements, but the actions on the page. Right, so it seems like this person doesn't actually know how to do this endorsement, and they're wasting a lot of time building up a backlog of other shit they got to do because they don't know how to do this thing, and they're not reaching out for help. Right, so all that means is say I need to reach out to them like, hey, what's going on? Like, do you need help with this? You need training? Can I help you with it? Right, and then you do that, and then going forward, their job's easier. I don't need to worry about them wasting all this time burning away money, right? Because that's what they're doing when they're spending so much time on something like that. And we move forward, right? So it's not like we're breathing over we're breathing over their throats. Their necks to make sure that they know what they're doing it properly, and they're doing it as smoothly as possible, right? So they're not stressing out
Talking like a
building a
boss.
backlog.
But
So Doobie, I think you point out and highlight the ways that AI can be utilized to gain knowledge quicker in a cheaper way, which is awesome, right? Like counterpoints, you brought up this idea of like, productivity versus time on screen, and you're kind of like going back and forth on that, which is cool. By the way, it's a simple problem that can be solved once people realize that it's a problem and then program it into the AI to look at the ratio of output versus the amount of time, et cetera. Yeah. And you can come up with a new metric and you can find those people that are struggling. I think the topic though is dealing with the idea of a large corporation, right, that has 100,000 employees, that doesn't want to investigate and then fires 10,000 people based off of a very cold, AI program that may not be sophisticated, that doesn't reach a certain level of fairness. And I think people are upset by the idea that it's not fair that they were fired because some machine told them they were doing a bad job, even though they believe that they were doing a good job or might actually be doing a good job, but the machine just had the wrong inputs. And I do think that what I would say, right, about the actual topic here, right, is like that there are responsible ways to use AI, and then there are ways that are just stupid. But the thing is that it is a cost benefit analysis within the market. It is a good idea that companies fire 10,000 people for their company if it's going to cost them 10, 20, 100, 200 times in order to pay humans to investigate who should be fired and who shouldn't. It might actually be beneficial to both them, the market, and everybody involved. And then other smaller companies that are more human can handle those people that are better talents that might outcompete them in another way. And you find that balance between those because of because of Hayek's knowledge problem, because you can't centrally plan these things because there are millions and billions of interactions in the market, and that knowledge is played out in the market.
Okay. If anybody else wants to rebut, go ahead, but I have a rebuttal to that shit.
You know what, counterpoints to go, and then we'll
So basically, like, I want our jobs to be eliminated, by the way. I find it shocking and frankly upsetting that we have like 3 pseudo professionals who probably make a decent amount of cash and they're all fucking insurance industry. I want to fucking seppuku myself right now because I work in this goddamn industry. And by the way, it's because basically, if I Doobie, please don't judge me too harshly. But the way that I view this industry is basically it's a giant fucking money laundering scheme where what they do is they get a bunch of motherfuckers to pool their resources together, invest it into the market. Of course, there are like, quality investors, but at the end of the day, it is the market. So it seems like there's a decent amount of gambling. And then if they get good returns, then the house wins and they get to make a shitload of money while paying out the minimum of claims. And then also if they lose, they pass on the cost of the consumer anyways. So that's like where for me, the house always wins. It's like working at a fucking casino, which is part of the reason why they pay everybody so well. So it's actually disgusting. But just to get back to like make this in general, so it's not about my personal disgust for the insurance market. Basically, what I think would happen with the advent of AI is people like the untalented middle managers would focus on the wrong things and they would destroy their companies, whereas the talented people would focus on the right things. So I think Scott pointed out, I'll shut up in a second, I swear. Scott pointed out that like this is something that would self-correct, where dumb managers would fuck up and destroy their companies, and then smart managers would dial in the fucking variables. That way you're not destroying your companies. And I think that would be good for the market overall. Whereas I think a lot of the people who are avoiding AI, they're doing so out of a fear that they'll be the ones on the chopping block. Fuck me.
Yeah, I gotta say,
it's hard and I keep getting my ass pounded.
Yeah, I'm
that
glad
was a great rebuttal where you.
I'd like to pound your ass after that bullshit.
I appreciate that rebuttal.
I think people.
Those are the rebuttals I love the most.
Look, Scott,
my butthole.
Connor.
Yeah.
Look, I don't appreciate you bad mouthing the insurance industry. Okay, how dare you? That's yes, it's like a big casino, but that's how I make my money. So fuck you. It's actually not. I don't see it. I see the total. You see it's like some like grimy fucking back alley thing where we're like stealing from people. I see it as one of the most beautiful industries that exists on the planet. Okay.
Doobie, you're losing my favor very fast.
Look,
Yeah.
we have
Doobie.
tens of thousands,
Honor.
hundreds of thousands, millions of people pulling their resources together, right, and saying, "Hey, if shit happens, right, if my fucking life falls apart, Allstate's going to be there. State Farm's
it's a community,
be there.
right?
Yeah, it's just
So we
it's
should,
literally a
have the
community
government do it and
pulling
make
money
social
together
It's
and
your friendly
agreeing
neighborhood church.
agreeing through a contract, by the way, to take care of each other, to make sure that if their house burns down, they're not going to be on the street, right? They're going to have some money to put together that they wouldn't have otherwise. They pay,
Unless you miss one payment.
Unless
Yeah.
there's an
Yeah.
exception.
I've
I
had
can
people play.
understand.
Well, then
Two
fucking,
payments,
hold on, wait. Then read your fucking policy. If you're going to sign a contract as a grown-up adult,
Right?
Oh,
and not know what the
classic.
exclusions are, then the fuck, you fucked up. Right.
Oh,
However, there is such a thing as errors and omissions insurance. If that happens and your insurance agent didn't tell you about something or lied to you about something, sue your fucking insurance agent. Right. Go after.
How are you gonna do that if you don't have any money?
Policy.
Yeah,
You know
I was
what I
going
mean?
to say.
No,
File a
wait,
claim.
that's
File a
not
claim.
easy.
File a claim with the errors and omissions policy. You can absolutely go after that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and also, I want to point out real quick.
Yeah,
so-
it's easy, easy.
Well, so having no money and suing people is so fucking easy because there's hordes of just plaintiffs' attorneys who are just chomping at the bit. Please let us sue for you. We'll take only 1/3. You get 2/3. Please, please, please let us sue for you.
Yup.
Okay,
So yeah,
but
you
this
don't
is-
need anything.
okay.
to sue somebody.
Yeah,
You guys
don't
are
need any
sidetracking
money.
again.
Really,
Yeah, you are
that's-
sidetracking me, and you
I'm
are
dead serious.
disgusting me. No, yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Connor.
Because
you know
what
it's true.
happens? No, what happens? What happens? So let's say that we created like a public option, which I know disgusts you, or the just like all Americans pooled their resources together in order to just pay out insurance as it was happening. We eliminated the suit, everybody negotiated in good faith, all that kind of bullshit. Then you wouldn't see all these fucking costs piled on. And I get fucking disgusted when I see fucking insurance lawyers driving fucking Maseratis and Ferraris down the fucking block. And I get disgusted when I see fucking high-level insurance fucking executives
Why?
driving
What's wrong with
Maseratis and
insurance
fucking Ferraris.
lawyers?
Because
when
those
they
are
find
fucking,
ways-
those are dollars that could have been paid out on claims that
Well, they
chose
shouldn't have
not
been.
to by nickel and dime.
No.
Not that they
Insurance
chose
lawyers
not.
defend-
Stop! No, please. I need to say that. Please,
Bullshit.
please.
Yeah.
It's not that they chose not to. It said that the contract that was signed had an exclusion that the client wasn't aware about or didn't give a fuck about. You don't know. I can't tell you how many fucking times, right? How many fucking times I've had some rich asshole, right, who doesn't want to pay the extra $2,000 for another $2 million of coverage. Some shit happens, his house falls apart, and suddenly he's pissed off because he doesn't have the coverage that he didn't pay for. Well, shit, I told you about it. You didn't want it. Fuck you, right? So that's
then
they sue,
Majority of your
and then they
claims?
sue, and then they lose a lawsuit, and then we move on. Right, so and those lawyers, please stop. Those lawyers, right? So the community that's pulling the money through this contract, right, to ensure that if shit goes bad, life doesn't fall apart, right? If my house burns down, I'm gonna have somewhere to sleep at night. If my car fucking blows up, I'm gonna have a way to get a new car. These people, right? Please, if the company keeps paying out on bad claims, pays out on fucking every sob story that comes through, right? All their premiums go up. Everybody pays more when the insurance company pays out on bad claims.
Fraud. Yeah.
Doobie, okay. So if you want to come back on, we can't pay every fucking sob story. I agree with you. Groundwater, right? No fucking insurance companies cover it. Nobody fucking knows about it. Everybody gets fucked on groundwater. It is what it is. Okay. But that being said, you and I both know that, like, if you're good faith, you tell everybody everything, you try to walk them through everything, and they just fucking don't listen to you. Awesome. But you and I both know that this industry is filled with fucking agents who don't know their fucking ass from their elbow. They've never seen a fucking a claim paid out in their entire fucking life, so they have no idea how the claims process works. You and I both know that there's adjusters who don't know their fucking ass from their elbow. And you also know that there's adjusters who are burnt the fuck out. They have crazy fucking claims loads, and as a result of having fucking crazy claims loads and companies that don't care and companies that don't give a fuck, they basically cut a check for the customer and then don't explain how the claims process works or what they're legally entitled to, and then basically walks away. And plenty of customers, I would say like 10 to 30%, depending on who you're fucking working with, they walk away with a third of what they're actually legally entitled to, but because they have no idea what the fuck they're doing, they get fucked. And those dollary dues end up with other fucking people.
They signed and understand what they're entitled to and what they're not entitled to.
Okay, last
great.
rebuttal, I promise. I will let us move on. But last rebuttal, I live in the United States of America, where easily a third of the population is sub 80 IQ. I do not agree with everybody's an adult shit.
I love how we're a family, but like if you don't like read this policy, I'm gonna fuck you over. Just like family,
hold on.
right? Like
That's how my family works.
And when I think of insurance, I think of Hurricane Katrina. That's the thing that I remember. And all those claimants who paid on time,
not covered.
Who paid on surging water is not covered. Who paid on time and they got fucked over. But guys, this is not on insurance. I don't know how I.
True.
Here.
Sorry.
You guys
we can do that as another panel.
Insurance is
Yeah,
beautiful. Okay.
yeah, we should. Like, oh my god, and it can all be against Doobie. I love it. We're gonna make it happen. All right, so we can go to Scott, but like, guys, let's focus on AI. I want to be able to bring everyone else in because this is what we're here to discuss.
Aiko had his hand up for a while.
Oh,
go Aiko first. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say, I mean, there is an AI answer to the conversation that we just heard. Because if you do have people who are not paying out the claims because, not necessarily because they're dishonest, because I can see that creeping into the AI, but AIs do not get tired. Like they can pay out exactly what's due. They can like do the math and like make sure that these things work, and they can have like another AI or another section of the AI like can do the auditing against it. So so I think there is a place for automation of services where if like a rote exercise that happens over and over again, like fatigues employees and causes them to make big mistakes, like an AI can be a solution for that.
Okay, I real quick rebuttal, Scott. I know you want to go. But basically, like, one, the things that you have to track are almost untrackable. Basically, it's drywall damage, water damage behind walls, what kind of insulation you use, all that kind of shit. I can't picture a computer program that would be able to capture that without like physically being in the room. And so I don't think that's necessarily true. It could probably compute averages and find aberrations in the formula, but it couldn't pay out. And then also the companies are not incentivized to. So if you were to design like a perfect AI system that makes the perfect payment all the fucking time, you're the one losing money because everybody else is doing the shady shit. So actually, so while I'm complaining a lot about this industry, I'm actually really happy because I probably work for one of the least shady fucking groups out there. But even in the least shady groups, you still see shit that makes your fucking stomach churn. So
Yeah, I think ironically it's not ironic. It's just true that the shadiest groups are going to be the brokers and the small companies, typically, because they hire on people who don't know what the fuck they're doing, basically.
Yeah.
So
And then lots of people just don't know that they can go after your E&O if you fuck up.
Ginger wanted to say something.
I want to bridge this gap, right? Between this insurance conversation and back to the topic on AI.
Maybe I think Ginger say what she wants to say.
I mean, sure, after me. Or when you host a panel, you can tell me to stop talking.
Well, you just seem like you're changing subjects, so I wanted to keep it on track a little bit.
Don't worry about it.
I mean,
okay.
Broncos tried to steer the ship before, like, you know what I mean? Fuck, I let iCal relax.
Yeah. Scott
anyways, bridging this conversation, I think what you guys are discussing, and the reason why, not just because so many people have worked in the insurance industry, but the reason why the insurance industry is such a great conversation here is because what you're describing is what is profit made of. And profit in a company is made of two things, right? The universal time preference, which is that people want things now at a higher rate, more so than they want the exact same thing later. So the capitalist gives the means of production or the capital investment that is necessary to produce things now, right? And then because we don't live in an evenly rotating economy, they give you they're rewarded with profit for allocation of resources. And that's based upon knowledge, right? And insurance is such a fucky game because the entire industry is based upon trying to predict knowledge in the future of so many fucking variables. And yet what we're talking about with AI is we're talking about knowledge. We're talking about how do we gain more information so that we can more appropriately allocate resources in a more effective way so that we can gain more profit, which thus grows the economy, increases new jobs, creates new jobs, creative destruction, and all of that. And so I think we really need to recognize that AI is an incredibly powerful tool for that knowledge. And I think all of us agree that the way it can be programmed and the way that it can be utilized can fuck us over. But that knowledge should be something that is celebrated and worked towards and not recoiled from like a fucking Luddite.
True.
I mean, the problem is that there'd have to be somebody that like continuously checks on the AI to make sure that the AI is functioning properly.
Don't worry, Doobie will.
You could have an AI check on the AI, right?
I agree. Like, if you just let it run rampant,
AI.
it's going to be useless fucking knowledge. Like, you're going to have to constantly update it, figure out what it's doing, give it new inputs, find problems, etc. But who utilizes that technology to the best of their ability are going to be the people that succeed in the market. Like, period.
Well, I mean, the problem is wouldn't the AI just eventually fire that person that's...
Yeah,
So-
it's not a Terminator movie.
Oh, okay, hold on. So the AI, this is something that I see all the time, and I've heard this complaint when it comes to driving as well. I think people really overestimate how good humans are when it comes to making these decisions as opposed to AI, right? Well, who's going to monitor the AI? Well, to be honest with you, an AI could probably monitor that AI better than a human could, right? In the same way that people think, oh, what if I think so, right? When people say like, what if the AI makes a mistake and I crash my car? Well, sure, as it is right now, there might be certain circumstances that we want a human driver, but you can get it to the point where an AI car is going to be superior, where any human input is going to actually throw the system off. Where once you get a human involved, you're going to fuck up the system, right? Because you're going to have a human make a mistake, because humans make fuck tons of mistakes all the time. And an AI, if it's tasked with something that it's very specifically programmed for, doesn't make mistakes at nearly that
So-
rate.
That's completely
theoretically
false. It's completely
Yeah.
false because we're not talking about artificial general intelligence, right? We're talking about something that is programmed with the inputs that we give it, and cultures change, economies change, individual decisions change, all of these things change. So there will always need to be, until we invent the fucking god AGI that takes over the goddamn world, if that's even possible, there will always need to be a human that looks for unintended consequences and then tests out programs in other places and tries to improve upon it. Because even if you just leave it alone, someone else will be improving their AI in another company as culture and as things change that will make it better than yours.
No. What I'm saying is
I
like,
wanna
what
hit
if
this
you
AI thing
designed an AI, like a generalized AI or whatever, that was like could improve the AI at a better rate than a human could?
Okay, but eventually
Okay, now you're
gonna
talking about
have to have
AGI.
somebody- Yeah, but eventually you're going to have somebody checking on one of the AIs, regardless of how many AIs you
Why?
have. Like, are you serious?
Why should I trust a human over a robot?
Because you're talking about like, well, why can't we just create an AI that has deductive and inductive reasoning skills? And the moment we do that, whoever that company is takes over the fucking world, right? Like that's not a simple fix.
We're close.
Or we're not. It depends on who
No,
you
and
ask.
we're not. I got to rebut this shit because basically we were talking maybe like 5 years ago about how nobody should be a truck driver because basically like automated driving is on the way and shit. And as far as I know, basically like I know a whole bunch. What happened is a glut in the market where a whole bunch of people stopped being truck drivers because they thought it was going to be a dead industry. And as a result of basically a whole bunch of new drivers not coming up, now there's like a fucking huge logistics fucking hole. And on top of that, people are capitalizing on it and they're making fucking like surgeon salaries and shit because basically people counted on computers taking over the market and they fucking haven't.
So they
think,
miscalculated on the time, but it could still happen, right?
Okay,
It likely
we're
will
talking
still
about
happen.
like millions of dollars of fucking like maybe billions of dollars of logistics damage caused by this expectation that AI was going to destroy everything. So basically, like my advice to any young people who are looking at an industry, if you see a salary and you see a skill set that looks good to you, do it until the fucking AI destroys your fucking job. Because if you listen to all these fucking Nostradamus motherfuckers, you're not going to do shit.
I actually agree with part of what you said, which was like timing this shit, I think is incredibly difficult. And so many times people say, well, this will replace this when it actually doesn't. Sometimes it does, right? Sometimes an industry does get replaced, but sometimes it doesn't, right? I think this is like trucking is a perfect example that you brought up, where the apprehension of like becoming part of the trucking industry because of all the optimistic talk about self-driving vehicles. I don't know if that was the only cause, but that intuitively would have contributed to it. But that being said, right? Self-driving vehicles compared to where they were only 5 years ago to where they are now, right? They're tremendous. Like they've made tremendous progress. And if they make the same progress 5 years in the future, or maybe it'll take 10, maybe it'll take 20. I don't know exactly how many years it'll take, but I think it's coming. I think it's reasonable to think it's coming. And like once it does, those jobs aren't going to exist
arguing is
anymore.
two different things. You're arguing two different things, though, right? So you're arguing that AI could eventually get to a point, right? Self-driving cars that they can take over that job from humans, right? I think so too. That eventually, I see your hand, Ginger. I think eventually that will certainly be the case. It's just a matter of R&D. It's a matter of time and investment. And we'll look back, right, at this moment in time, the way we look back at when cars first emerged, right? And the amount of accidents that happened there, it was crazy, right? And we had like no safety mechanisms. It's a different time. You wouldn't even recognize
Currently
it.
46,000 a year.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, what's a few dead toddlers amongst friends, right?
But so there's that, right? And I agree with that. But then you also said at some point we'll have an AI or AGI, right? That will be able to run other AIs. And I think that's where like most people will give you pushback. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think this is impossible. That like the idea that programs one day like end their own job, right?
Yeah, but this isn't a Tool song, right? Like, let's not get too far away from the topic where we all fucking, eat mushrooms and talk about the AGI taking over.
I can't wait.
But I mean, I'm just saying that those. I'm
Right.
just trying to separate those things.
Right. And yeah, but I think the only real separation between those two things is just a matter of time, right? So, the only thing I'm pushing back against here was, well, we're always going to need a person to look after this stuff. I don't think so. I think as time goes on, is the programs right now that they're using to fire people good enough to not have human input? Probably not. But I think it's like wishful thinking to think, like, just assume, well, we're always going to have a person watch over this. I don't see why.
Let's look at Ginger, then Aiko.
Okay, so the way that you're saying is that you think that once like they have like the AI capability of a car running all by itself and doing everything by itself, that they won't have like a manual override option.
They might, but they're not going to use it, right? There's no reason to use it.
But the idea that it's there is comforting. So the idea that there's a possibility there's somebody looking over the AI is not far-fetched, is not a stupid idea. Because eventually you're going to have to make sure that there's something there backing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it could be simple.
Doomsday, and I'm not memeing.
It could be something as simple as what I said earlier, where the AI makes suggestions, right, for either promotion or firing or retraining or whatever it is. And then a human looks it over, right? And if there are problems with the suggestions being put forward, you can adjust the data in the AI or whatever the fuck to make sure that it's not, there's no like bias built into the machine, right?
That's right. You didn't fire enough black people. All right, so Aiko, then Corey.
So I think the problem isn't whether or not you should have like a person who can like check the work or make sure that the AI is not doing anything wrong. I think the question is, I think what we're all getting around is the point at which we arrive at the singularity, the point at which AI is so complex that humans really aren't capable of understanding what it's doing. Doesn't mean that it's like intelligent.
Why are we doing this?
It just means that there's a level of complexity that sort of like runs beyond us. And at that point, I don't even know that we would understand the feedback that we're getting from a sufficiently complex AI. And so to be able to correct it at that point, I mean, I'm not sure that we can. Like that,
well, I mean, at that point, why wouldn't you just like upload yourself into the machine and watch people from their webcams? I'd watch Connor all day.
Okay.
Well, no, we're already there with facial recognition software, right? Like AI helps write that software.
Right. What I was trying to get at, like Aiko, kind of, I guess what I'm poorly explaining is, if I'm running a company, every expense matters and every option for profit matters. And I have a algorithm that fires people based on lack of productivity, right? And then I develop an algorithm to monitor that algorithm, and it more or less functions correctly. Why would I hire somebody to learn the prerequisites to manage the AI when I don't have to? If it doesn't become profitable for me to have that kind of safe switch anymore, there's no reason why.
Did you forget how humans work? Like, I don't understand. Like, you're not even gonna factor in like there's no way an AI can quantify like the other like things that people do in the office. Like, it's so weird to me that we're talking about an HR, specifically human resources AI, and none of you guys want to talk about like the things that you cannot quantify. It just seems odd to me.
You can quantify.
Well, I did,
anything.
but the
Mental
problem
illness?
isn't. Well, the
Yes,
problem
of course
is,
you can
is it's
quantify
Fire them
that.
immediately.
How are you
It's not-
quantifying that?
Nina,
You have it or you don't, or what?
Nina,
Yeah,
the
you can
the
like
question.
measure certain reactions and certain stimuli that the
Nina.
machine like
That's
receives.
so invasive.
In fact, I bet a machine.
Nina.
I bet a machine could probably diagnose somebody with mental illness better than any average human could. Probably.
Nina, it
Maybe
doesn't
have that
matter.
then.
Nina, it doesn't matter
Or not.
if there's a human element that's lost in the process. What matters is the human element that's lost by firing the HR people more valuable than the accuracy of the information as opposed to the salary of those HR people?
Yes. Because
So
have you
I
ever heard
can
of ADA?
lose.
Have you ever heard of ADA?
Well, yeah, I don't give a fuck about U.S. laws. I fire all the disabled
Okay,
people. I
but
don't care. But like,
it pays out $400,000 in lawsuits, my dude. Like, if you don't have that one person,
because there's the
right.
laws.
So again, the
so you
question
get rid of
here,
the laws? Like, are you that libertarian?
anarchist.
No, to dodge liability.
You're
you can't.
running away.
You're still discriminating.
The robot is not me.
Listen,
it doesn't matter.
Jesus Christ! Back to what I'm fucking saying. That you're just pivoting
Oh my god! Like
away
you're
from
complaining
both
about
of you.
somebody talking too much.
I'm not complaining about someone talking too much. I'm complaining about someone pivoting. Right? The problem. You're wrong, and the reason you're wrong is because the human element doesn't matter if the AI is sophisticated enough in order to fire someone with a $70,000 salary. They can lose $40,000 in terms of information that may have been gained.
And you're telling me that exists?
Yes, it's entirely possible, right? Just think about it for a moment. If you have one HR person, right, and let's say they're more accurate because of the human element that you're describing, the question is, are they more accurate enough that it justifies their salary? Because I can lose $40,000 in bad decisions if I don't have to pay an HR person $60,000 or $70,000. That's a net gain
in a lawsuit, like from like them saying that you have discriminatory AI practices.
Okay, this is irrelevant, right? Like that's
it's not. If you're talking about how much money you could get from the HR person, you know that their job is to protect the company, right?
Okay, presumably.
No, not.
They're supposed to.
You could say it that way, sure, but you know that's what the HR's job is, to make sure that there isn't like grounds for like lawsuits on like disability and like harassment, like sexual harassment, stuff like that. Like you think an AI can deal with that?
Hold on.
Eventually, yeah.
And the HR people.
How?
The HR people.
What do you mean
how?
Like,
what do you mean? Well, how would an AI deal with a sexual harassment claim?
The amount of sexual harassment claims that came from HR managers that I dealt with, right? Okay. I'm telling you, like they are like a source of liability in of themselves.
That's true.
Okay, first of all, from the very onset,
claims. That's a really stupid point. It doesn't matter.
They're people.
From the very onset, we're not talking
dick pics to their employees, right?
No, you're fucking.
Okay, so let's just fire all the
getting
people and have all the
distracted.
robots work. What are you talking about?
You're getting distracted.
Yes.
Like I don't think you're following what's occurring here, right? Like nobody is talking about. Nobody is talking about sexual harassment claims and not having employees to deal with those issues. What we're talking about is the step. Okay, yes, but you're overgeneralizing here and like not talking on the topic.
Bro,
right?
you've been talking about insurance for like an hour, dude.
Dude, like that was Doobie and Counterpoints mostly. Relax. Like what I'm saying, like the only time I talked about insurance was to bring it back to the AI conversation. What I'm talking about is the topic is about firing people, right? So what you can do is you can reduce staff in that process, right? Like we're not saying that an AI can do everything, though eventually it probably could. But that doesn't mean, and you're saying, but there's a human element, right? That there is information that would be missing. And all that I am saying is that the cost benefit analysis can be to where the AI becomes worth the cost, because a software company sold me something for $1 million for 10 years. And I was able, if I'm able to purchase that software solution, and even if I lose some money, it doesn't matter if I don't have to hire people that cost more than the money lost, because that's a net gain for me.
Well, hiring employees is significantly more expensive, right? Employees.
Nina.
Okay. Apparently, you can't engage with the topic, so never mind.
This is exactly what I want, though. No, Nina, you're missing the point. This is exactly what I want. I want Scott and Fabian Liberty and fucking Lactoid to be like, yeah, fuck it, fire all the HR people. Who gives a shit? Fucking set up the AI in order to deny the first sexual harassment claim, and then if they file it again, then we'll fucking look at it.
Well, you're wanting to watch the world burn. I get it. You should be wearing the Joker costume.
The world burn, just the insurance industry. So, yeah. So, anyway, but no, this is exactly.
Wait, do we want to read the prompt again? If you guys think I'm off base here, like what the fuck?
No,
let's go to Corey. Let's go to Corey.
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, Corey, let's see what he's got to say.
Well, yeah, I might just derail it further, or like go down the same path. But so Doobie, I would ask you if you cared, so would you be in? I don't know, maybe it's already the case, but on the computer that you use, do you have employee tracking software that, let's say, is basically with someone looking at you?
Fuck no, but I own the company.
Yeah, well, so that's so. I'm curious. So would you be in favor of like having employee tracking software on your computer and then like of
course not.
well that's sort of my larger point.
Yeah, I'm not saying I didn't like it. I also wouldn't like
Well, exactly. I'm totally in favor of employee tracking software and AI when it's universally applied. There's a reason why, again, going back to my crusade against open concept offices. It's like, yeah, it's for the non-managerial employees, and then the managers get the offices. Because again, like just like my concern is like
work your way up so you're no longer a pleb, and then you don't have the AI tracking
Not
software.
everyone can be a manager, as far as I'm not an expert and whatever.
Get
whatever.
good, you fucking losers.
But yeah, exactly. But so yes, as long as it's universally applied and everyone is subjected to the AI and the algorithm and the employee tracking software, then I'm all in favor. And then to Counterpoint's point, then we watch the world burn, and then we see what happens.
Yeah, Corey. So this is kind of been my point. Like, I know this is like a Twitch panel, so we do deal with like hypotheticals and all that kind of stuff. But like you, me, and everybody who's worked a job for more than like 20 hours knows that the bosses are not going to have that shit on their fucking computer. And if they do, they're going to have the report go to one of their boys. That way, if they're fucking jerking off during lunch, like nobody finds out about it. So that's my thing. Is like,
look, when you run shit, you jerk off whenever you want to. Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of
but you also have different metrics. Like part of your job as the CEO is to schmooze with other corporate types. Like how do you get an AI to determine whether or not you're schmoozing enough?
That's quantifiable.
Yeah.
With enough implants on your
schmooze hours.
You have not had enough martinis this week, so sorry. You
insufficient martinis for schmooze hour. Get your shit together.
Right.
Middle management did not make enough TikToks about how awesome our company's cafeteria is. You're fired.
I think as to the liability question though, like ultimately the fewer people you have in the workplace, like the less liability you're going to have. People are just beacons of liability, right? They walk in, they're going to slip, they're going to trip on the things that people trip on will surprise you. It's incredible, right? They'll trip on something and they'll fall and they'll break something, and then you're sued, right? They'll get pissed off because somebody made an off-color comment. They'll sue. They're angry because they got fired because they didn't show up for 3 weeks, and they fucking sue because actually this isn't because I didn't show up for 3 weeks. It's because I'm a woman or because of XYZ, right? Like there's all
women can't walk.
Had that woman example loaded up and ready to
these are just. I'm just.
Hold on, Nina.
Why are
To
you
be
so against
fair,
your own
I'm giving
self-interest?
you examples of like things that I have litigated, right? These crazy cases where, and then here's the reality, like as
those people settle.
Yes, 98% of cases settle. So people know I can make the dumbest fucking case, and the insurance company's going to settle for some amount, right? Because I'm going to get something out of it. So if you just get rid of people, liability goes like fucking way down. You're gonna make so much more money.
To be fair to Nina, right? She didn't show up to work for 3 weeks because she kept getting sexually harassed, and you fired all the HR people that were going to deal with her complaints. All right, so that's your fucking fault for bringing in the AI in the first goddamn place. All right,
fair.
Hold on. No.
I would have gotten fired before that came.
Okay, when the example that Scott fucking said, where it's like, oh well, is it cheaper or whatever? Well, it's cheaper when you fire a fucking $50,000 a year fucking HR employee and the software costs $80,000. But then I'm pretty sure your calculation recalculates when you fucking get a $500,000 suit
exactly
every 3 years.
100%.
The fucking AI to make
no. I'm telling you.
And then you tune it in.
The liability that would come from like these rare examples where you actually have like a person not like looking at this. That the total amount of dollars there is a drop in the bucket compared to all the liability that you'll be avoiding by just having people at the workplace. In the same way that like you're gonna have a fuck ton less liability when you're not having human drivers, because the car accidents are such a major portion of fucking claims and lawsuits. What is the basis? Somebody fucked up. Somebody didn't stop when they were supposed to.
Why do you want this, Mr. Lawyer? Isn't this
That's
your
what I'm
fucking
saying.
This is how you know I'm honest. I am advocating.
I just think you kind of hate yourself.
Losing all my income. Right? That's how you know.
Fucking right on the money.
See, you are railing against the insurance agency because you know it's fucked up. I'm railing against lawsuits, which kind of associate with the insurance agency because I think it's fucked up. Right? If we can solve liability, then like hopefully I can make myself obsolete and I can go do something more productive than like argue with somebody who's tripped on a rug It's fucking
All right,
stupid.
so my
Well,
my
I love
counter argument for AI can do everything fucking argument is basically like there are I agree with Nina that there are intangibles, basically like human intangibles, that you're not going to be able to calculate and that aren't going to be like you can put fucking ADHD on like the 1 out of 10 fucking disability scale, and then you can put Down syndrome on the 7 out of 10, but now you're kind of being a fucking asshole. And basically I think you're going to get sued more than that, like, disability scaling system is going to help you.
But
And then when it
You
comes
should just
to
not hire those people.
Right?
You get tax
then
credits, by
you're
the way, for
creating
ADA
new
stuff.
problem. Then you're creating new problems.
most
Not
of the-
everything is money.
Most
I
of
know
the
we're in a
disability
capitalist,
lawsuits-
but not everything is money.
Counterpoints. Like, that's acknowledged. Though I don't think that Scott or Lagtoad would disagree with what you just said. Like,
Scott said
there's-
fire all the disabled people.
Well,
He said fuck them.
I thought that was Doobie.
Well, it was both of them. I'm
I
pretty
didn't
sure.
say
They're
yeah.
both terrible people, so take your pick.
Yeah.
But like,
True.
like I think that
Never
there's
meet your
levels to
heroes.
this, right? So
Right.
that's what Scott was trying to say before, right?
Wow,
that's
that's
why he made
fucked
the differentiation between artificial
Yes, you are.
intelligence and artificial generalized intelligence, right? Like, there are.
That's why I said in the
human
beginning, you
intangibles.
need humans. Like,
Yeah. We don't have a level of AI that can handle the intangibles that Nina was trying to get to, right? Like, and it's not coming anytime soon. Like, anytime soon. Like, our level of AI is just so primitive, right? Like, in a lot of unfortunate ways. So, like, yes, we can acknowledge that you can't do that. At this point, we still need humans to back it up, right? Like, it's a pretty mundane point, right? Like, at this point, software
I
isn't
mean-
good enough to run itself.
I mean, according to Lactoid, all we have to do is like just create an AI to create AIs to where they're smart enough to do that. So
But I think
Ideally.
that would be the
I think
GI
he wants the annihilation of the entire human race and just have it be like robots.
Yeah, dude.
No,
Haven't you
no,
seen
I will-
fucking
all-
Terminator?
What
What the
Rain
fuck?
short story.
No, I think employers shouldn't have to put up with these fucking workers anymore, suing them and taking all their money. It's bullshit.
Yes.
So nobody
It's
should
the
be employed.
employers who are
Yeah.
suffering right now.
100%
It is the
unemployment.
bosses.
Unironically,
Yes,
It's anti-work, but not the way you
Oh
don't
my
want.
God.
right?
Well, maybe it should be that.
I
but,
made,
no, I'll
I made
entertain that.
150K instead of 300. Wop wop. Like,
I'll
fucking hell.
entertain that for a second. Yeah, maybe nobody should be employed, or like, isn't that like the goal? Like, wasn't
Yeah,
that the
gay
future
luxury
that
space
when we
communism.
thought of like
Yeah.
automation and robots, is that they would take over the work, right? That we live in a beautiful socialist society in space,
Yeah, gay luxury.
where
Wall-E.
like
You
all,
had
the
me at the
stuff-
first
Wall-E.
all the work was taken for us, and there was that Disney movie, right, with the little robot. I forget what it's
Wall-E,
called.
yeah,
right?
just said
Wall-E.
Wall-E.
Yeah, Wall-E.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Wall-E. Yeah,
Yeah, and
then, like,
everybody
they
was
just take
fat
everything
and
for
had
us. That's the future we're trying
osteoporosis
to
and
get to.
cardiovascular issues and shit, and they were just on blood thinners for eternity. Yeah.
Well, no, they didn't
Yeah.
have osteoporosis because I think it had like no
So-
bones, which I was just a
We'll also
ball
have like the
reclining.
virtual reality
Yes.
like hookup,
Another
right?
problem.
Like
They just
Like-
had porosis.
Well, Prime. So Prime. So
No
this is-
osteo.
this is my take on this, right? So, and I think ultimately it's going to happen. I think if you get fully automated where you move beyond scarcity, I think just looking at like a supply and demand graph, I think the answer is obvious, right? I mean, economics is going to end as
You
a practice.
post scarcity is impossible.
So if it's, I'm saying if it happens, right?
By your
If
definition.
you
It's
move-
It's
if you
literally
move to
not
that point,
possible.
End of history shit. Listen,
It doesn't matter what machine you can do, right? Like, it doesn't, like, you cannot get to post scarcity because even if you could solve every fucking material problem, humans exist, and the scarce resource is human ingenuity.
According to you.
AI could figure
Wait,
out how
wait,
to do
hold
that
on.
fucking better. Dude,
Well, no,
AI is creating people that are more entertaining than the people that like.
It does even
go on
if they're
streams.
even if they do it better, a human has an idea, and that is a scarce resource. So long as they maintain that idea within their head and do not share that idea. So human
on,
innovation is still a scarce resource because there's only one of you. You
But how
cannot
am I-
get to
We're-
post scarcity.
Hold on, we're letting the
I'm
girls
not-
we're letting the girls get away with something right now. So Nina, you said never meet your heroes to Ginger.
Oh, I thought you were talking
Who
about
is your-
them.
to Doobie,
Fucking
to Doobie.
hero.
No, I was
Fucking
talking about
hero.
Doobie because I was such a fan of Doobie, and now he's letting me down.
Okay, no,
Look,
that's-
you're just not there yet, okay? So this happens with
No,
everybody
you're
I meet.
capital.
They get really worked up. They get really sad that I don't agree with them. They're fucked up worldviews. Then eventually you'll start agreeing with me, and you realize that I was correct all along.
Yes.
Not
And
that-
actually,
You're a
made me was
business
the best thing that
owner.
ever happened to you.
Eventually, you realize that it's mostly just a troll, and he's full of shit.
It's racist.
He's a centrist fascist.
Frog racist. It's
Wait,
mostly
did you
that
think
I
I was
hate your
communist or something? Yeah,
VTuber.
so I was talking about.
He's center on the compass, but way up.
Ico.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people keep talking about how AI can't get to the point where it can catch up to a human or understand humans, and I understand that. I think that's true, but I think we'll get to the point. I think things are bifurcating, because I think we'll also get to the point where AIs are too complicated for us, and neither one of us is understanding each other. And I'll give you an example. Everyone's heard that story, or maybe not everyone's. I think most of us have probably heard the story about that interview with Chat GPT, where it started like hitting on the questioner, and it started asking all these questions that were like very inappropriate, and it had even been programmed to stop a particular line of questioning if it was told to stop that line of questioning. And that
then they outwitted the line of questioning. I fucking love that shit.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And then when they asked the Google engineers what happened, they all said, "Well, I don't know." And this is not the first story. Are you
talking about
for
Replica
years?
or
I've been reading
ChatGPT?
stories about programmers saying that they don't understand why the AI that they programmed did a thing that they did. You had these unintended consequences that were happening as a result of the programming, because it was able to start programming itself. And because of that, that's what I mean when I talk about singularity. I'm not talking about the sci-fi concept of an ultra intelligent being that arises like a ghost in the machine sort of thing. I just mean a level of complexity within AI that then sort of goes beyond the understanding of its programmers or anybody that could fix it. So when we say, oh, well, we need a human being who can check this, we're going to reach a point at which we can't check it anymore, just because we don't understand the thing that we've built. And building another AI that we also don't understand to check that AI may not be a sufficient answer to that problem.
So if that occurs,
Wait.
right?
Infinite
in
AIs,
your-
right?
If that
Right. Then you build an AI to control the
if
AI.
that
to control it.
occurs,
Like
right?
the
If that
Russian dolls.
occurs,
Right.
if that occurs in a AI that's designed to fire people and it works, why do I give a fuck if there's
What
a
do you mean it
company that
works?
then manages
That's
it?
the question.
Like,
yeah.
well, it beats out other companies in the market in terms of its efficiency
Right.
at getting rid of employees
Okay,
that
so
are,
then
that
I
are
have
net
to-
cost
I
or
have to
not
ask
as
you,
efficient as others.
You guys sound like my dad right now. Where I asked him once, he is super into machine learning, and I asked him about the ethics of it, and he was just like, "What?" I feel like you're kind of forgetting the human factor. What is the point of AI if it is not helping us as humans? I
That's
know
literally what I
obviously
just said.
Lapwood wants to genocide all humans or whatever, but the rest
No,
of
no,
you,
no.
I think, normal people,
Nina,
honestly, what is
that's
the
what I
point
just
of an
said.
AI?
Yeah,
if we're
he's
just saying
helping-
about
he's
companies
helping the
making money.
capitalists.
Who gives a
Genocide all
shit if it's a
humans.
company's making money for one person? Do you just fantasize as being that
does.
one person, Scott?
No,
I don't understand.
If your company is more, if your company is making more profit because it has more accurate information, then it's delivering a better product and engaging in growth in the market and creating wealth that benefits everybody. So that is
How
to
does
the
it benefit
betterment of
everybody if,
humanity.
two people are working at it?
'Cause it's
Benefits all the
serving-
people working
it's
there.
Serving
You think you pay
customers.
taxes, motherfucker? What are you talking about?
And
What are you talking
Oh,
about?
I think we
Can
should.
I respond to the
I think we
allegations
should-
of genocide?
I think we should tax. I think when we get start eliminating a bunch of employees, we should start creating a special tax for AI, right? So and that tax can be used for the general fund
shit.
of humans, and then that'll work out. But
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
get it. You stand in the way of progress.
Yeah.
Like,
So
okay.
okay. So I was gonna. All right. So I'm kind of memeing, kind of not. But the fucking there's two memes that popped into my head when you're like, wait, Fabian, you only give a shit about market efficiency, and you don't care about morality or human improvement or any of that kind of shit. One of them is the astronaut,
false.
on the moon with a fucking meteor smashing the Earth, and it's like, oh no, the economy. And then, and then the other one is it's a business guy, and he's by an oil drum, and his suit is in tatters, and he's talking to a child, and he's like well, for a really beautiful window, we had a perfect market, and we got a lot of value for our shareholders, and it's like the world is all crumbled and fallen to pieces and shit. And so
So do you have an
this
argument or just memes?
Yeah, I don't think that the market
You said they were
actually
memes.
provides for every negative externality. I think that you have to have different values besides profit and fucking market efficiency. Like, believe it or not, like, human beings are not hyper specialist creatures that only care about two fucking variables. And I want Reagan fucking laissez-faire capitalism to fucking die. I want to crucify it in the fucking public
Let's go.
square.
So do you have an argument other than people should have values that you think aren't captured by the argument? So you think there's
I would
negative
say- I would
externalities.
say
What's the
every
negative
time- I would
externality
say-
that you're proposing?
I think he's
exists
asking
in
if
the
you have
scenario?
any humanitarian values besides just like profit.
Separate from your fucking ANCAP shit. And Fabian,
So
you're talking-
separate from
you're saying that
my
you're trying to-
political philosophy, do I have any values? Yeah, I have personal values separate from my political philosophy, but I'm the only one here that actually gives a fuck about ethics. Like, fuck off.
Yes, you're the
Make an
only
argument.
person out of 9 human beings that give a fuck about ethics. And
Spoken like an
morality.
ANCAP.
I get in trouble on this fucking panel every goddamn week because I bring up ethics, and we're like, we're not talking about ethics right now. So make a fucking argument
No,
instead of
you-
just saying memes.
By who? Nobody was
Okay,
doing that.
so, no, I wanted to say the memes, and then no, it's funny that you're trying to back me into make a positive argument about your entire fucking world philosophy. Besides the fact that I don't think it takes into externalities, whereas when everybody brings up like negative externalities that are like very obvious and like a logical inference of like you can't rob or steal or whatever, you're like, well, you're violating like a fundamental principle, therefore it doesn't make sense. Like that's your whole argument structure. So like, what the fuck?
I'm glad that you're talking about like. I'm glad that you're trying to like succinctly describe what I've said in the past in a memey way, but you've still yet to make a fucking argument.
Well, I think we're way off topic at this point. So what do you want me to
Yeah,
make an argument about?
it doesn't not really.
Okay, well, I'll just take that dub that you're just engaging in
Where you
fucking memes.
ANCAPs don't consider
Yeah,
negative
guys,
externality.
we got it at the end of this one. At the end of this one, okay? Go on to the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through this video, then you've got to like, share, and subscribe. Over 70% of you watching aren't subscribed, and it really helps. We're live on Twitch every Monday through Thursday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. And follow us on Twitter for more spicy libertarian takes. Finally, we all know that YouTube is a temporary place for dissidents. One day we'll upset the wrong journalists and be gone. Poof. But it doesn't have to be that way if you make sure to follow us on Rumble. Every video on YouTube is also posted to Rumble, and sometimes we exclusively stream there. Thank you for your time. All links are in the description below.